Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the way the editor is laid out and some of the common windows you might encounter. Starting with our main toolbar, which is along the top that we can see here, we have access to some of the more common functions you're going to be using. Things such as creating new objects, looking at our content browser, quick access to blueprints and cinematics. Along the top, we have access to our editing modes. The first one being our select editing mode, which lets us select items inside of our viewport. Next to that, we're going to have our landscape mode, and we might have additional tools such as foliage editing, mesh painting, fracturing, or modeling. This toolbar allows us access to the common modes that we will work with in the engine. And next to this, we have the ability to play test. For example, if I was to hit play, it's going to go ahead and load up our little sequence or animation, show us a nice little preview of what we're going to be working with, and then end. And if you ever want to leave, you can hit the escape key when you're in the editor, or we can use the tools at the top to pause, stop, and eject. I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And on the far right of our main toolbar is our settings menu, which is quick access to some of our settings. In the middle of our screen is our viewport, or our primary viewing, where we're going to view stuff. We will cover this one separately in its own video, but just know for now, this is where you can see what you're working on and interact with it. Below this at the bottom, we have our content browser. Our content browser represents, like we mentioned in a previous video, the content or the assets that are on our disk. So if we have a texture, we might find it in maybe our materials section under textures. Or if we have a level, we might find it in a levels folder. You can, of course, create your own folders and structure this how you'd like. One thing to note is on the bottom left, we have a quick access content browser. So for example, I can close this content browser and click on this one at the bottom, and it will pop up over what I have. And then when I'm done with it, it'll easily go away. So that's nice to know. On the top right, we have the World Outliner. Let me go ahead and click on Content on the top, Content Browser 1, to bring my content browser back. This content browser represents the items on our disk, our physical items that are our assets to be used in our project. The World Outliner represents those assets inside of our level, instances of them, or actors. So while we may have a blueprint in here that represents our game mode, our World Outliner may have an instance or a copy of it once we start playing. Details panel shows the details of the items that we are working on. For example, if I click on this mesh in the middle of the screen, you can see in our World Outliner, it's selected this building, type static mesh actor. And in our details panel, we now have information about it, such as the parts that make it up, its transform, and other information that is specific to this item that we are clicking on. There is also a sidebar. On the left, we can see place actors. If we click on that, a little sidebar will pop out. When we click on it again, it'll go away. And the sidebars are adjustable. We could right click on it and tell it to restore it. Now it's no longer a sidebar, but it's another tab that we can work with inside of our project. We can see here. Or we could right click on it and collapse tab well. This gets rid of our header at the top. Or we can bring it back and move to sidebar, and it'll move it back to a collapsible sidebar. You not only have one sidebar, but you do have two. Let's say your World Outliner doesn't want to be here anymore. You can right click on it, move to sidebar, and it's going to move it to a sidebar along the right side. We could do the same with our details, for example. And now we have a big clean window with just some pop-up sidebars. Now, at this point, we have done a lot to our UI, and maybe we've messed things up. This content browser I want back at the bottom. So if we drag it, it'll try to snap to wherever it can go. But we don't really have anywhere that it can snap. This moves it. The tab itself is where our snapping comes in. So if you grab the tab, you'll notice it'll try to snap to different parts. So let's say I want another content browser. We'll go to Content Browser 2, drag its tab. I could snap it next to this existing content browser. And you're going to see it's going to try to do its best to put it wherever it can. Or you can even put tabs next to each other, like in your web browser. Now, throughout all of this, what if we want to save this setting? I like the way this is set up. I want to use this again in the future. I like the layout. We can go up to Window and Save Layout and save the layout as a custom version. Or we can export it out if we want to put it somewhere else. But what if we've messed up so bad we want it back to defaults? Well, we can go to Load Layout, Default Editor Layout, and after a quick restart, our layout should go back to the defaults. And you can see we have things sidebarred and such, and we have our content browser ready to go again. Now with that, let's take a look at some of the things we've mentioned, like our objects, instances, assets. What is all of this?